Hey there, my name is Tolo and this is the follow-up video to my recent video on Turtle Mech versus Bio in TvT. This is the same replay I used in that video and in the same situation where we secured 3 bases and the opponent is attacking at the moment while our 4th base is still building or ready but not yet at the mineral fields. Okay, let's start. The opponent tries to attack me, but of course my tanks are well positioned and generally my army is in a good defensive position. He can't really do anything. The ravens are out in the fight and they will continue to clean up the siege tanks without whom the opponents can't do anything. And yeah, this is the situation where I started to upgrade the Hunter-Seeker missiles, because at that point I have enough money to support this, and generally when I have secured the 4th base I start to switch to Sky Terran, because then you have enough income to build the really expensive units, the battle cruisers and ravens, while still maintaining a good count of siege tanks. So yeah, when you secured your 4th base, then I think it could be considered late game, because then you can start to pump out battle cruisers and ravens, and I think I should start a couple of starports more really soon. Or maybe I didn't in this replay, because I saw that he goes only bio, because about at the moment when you take your 4th base, most opponents will go for Sky Terran themselves. And this is the point when you can really switch to Sky Terran with only battle cruisers and ravens. And yeah, as I mentioned in my video on how to micro air armies, battle cruiser raven is the ultimate composition you want to have in any matchup, including TvT, because this is such an extremely good composition that can efficiently deal with almost anything. But because it is very expensive, you should only start to go for this composition when you have 4 bases. Yeah, in this replay the opponent only went for bio without any further attack. So as you see, the replay only goes 30 seconds more. He tries to attack into this position, but loses most of his army, and because he knows that he can't do anything to my army anymore, he leaves the game. And this is also generally the point where the tables turn, and before this point the bio player has most of the advantages, and when you secured your 4th base you start to have the advantage, because your army gets really efficient and you can start to go for Sky Terran and just win in most of the cases, because your army is better and most of the time you will have more experience in the late game than the bio Terran, because most TvTs don't go over the stage of Marine Tank Medivac against Marine Tank Medivac. So this is a different replay in which the game really goes to the late game. As you see, the game goes on for 35 minutes and it's actually can happen really often that the games go over the 30-minute marks in TvT. Because once you get to the late game, it gets really hard to outright kill the opponent, but you will have all advantages and you will trade much more efficiently, because you can trade Raven energy and Yamato cooldown against units, and so the opponent will mine out way faster than you, and at the end you have an army left and he doesn't, and then the opponent just leaves the game. So the opponent denied my 4th base in this game and I had to build it again. And just like in the other game, I have my 3 bases until now, have a lot of siege tanks that are in defensive positions, and a couple of ravens and a couple of Vikings. And now I take my 4th base, secure it with 3 tanks, or even 4, make it to a planetary fortress, and now the base is pretty safe. Right when the planetary fortress is finished, the opponent just walks into my tank line, kills a lot of them, but loses against the ravens, while I have a Hellion 1-buy going on. That is actually something that is pretty important, because you will have many minerals. Like you see, I have 1000 overmins. You can just spam Hellions and just run them all over the map and try to get a couple of worker kills. Those don't have to be efficient, because you have those minerals anyway. The only thing that you don't want to lose is gas. So you can just waste your Hellions to get scouting informations or a couple of worker kills. Widow mines on the map are also pretty helpful. So yeah, at this point I have my 4th base secured, built a 5th base, and as you can see I built 2 more starports, and I had 2, and I started researching mech attack and air attack simultaneously. But as I already said in the other video, defense isn't as important in TvT. So if you build 2 armories, you just want to upgrade the offensive upgrades, and as soon as +3 mech attack is finished, you can change to defense on that armory. So yeah, at this point we have a pretty safe 4th base. The opponent tries to attack, but this is way too much for him to break. And well, there are tanks and turrets everywhere on the map, everywhere where he can attack. A couple of mines, and yeah, this is a situation you want to have on 4 bases. So this is a little later in the replay. I secured my 5th base and started building a fusion core here. And yeah, my 2 starports I started earlier are built with a tech lab and produce ravens. And generally, once you have your 4th base, all your production facilities you add now are built with a tech lab, and you don't build any new reactors, because the units you can build from the reactor on the factory, they are Hellions and Widow mines. Hellions aren't really useful anymore in this point of the game, and you only have them as mineral sink anyways. So once you start having a big army and the Hellions would cut into your army supply, you stop building Hellions. And mines are only ever good in medium to small numbers, because you just want to have a couple of them on the map, and they aren't really good in an open fight, so yeah, you only produce not so much of them anyway. And from the starports you could produce Vikings, Medivacs or Liberators with a reactor. And Medivacs, you could produce a couple of them, like 1, 2, maximum 3 to drop Hellions, for example, or mines. But for that you don't need a reactor. Vikings, you don't want to have Vikings at that point anymore. All those Vikings are from earlier, and if you can, you should try to trade them efficiently. If you can't, you just have them, they will die eventually. You don't want to waste those, because they cost 75 gas each, and that is still a lot of gas. And yeah, the other unit you could build are Liberators, and Liberators are really bad against Bio. And you don't really want to have those. A couple of Liberators are okay to break tank lines, but not too many. So yeah, you don't want to have reactors in the late game anymore. Or rather say, you don't want to have new reactors. Yeah, the units you want to produce are tanks, ravens, and once the fusion core is finished, battle cruisers. So the opponent builds up a big concave and will try to break me. And he will force me to lift up this base. But this doesn't really matter, because there isn't much income here anyways. And I make the mistake to let my ravens get EMP'd, which is not really good. And as I said, those Vikings get traded away. And yeah, the mistake in this game was that I didn't have enough tanks. You always want to have enough tanks to kill his ground army, and yeah, I built too many ravens instead. And at this point I even went for battle cruisers, which take a long time to produce, and he just attacked at the right moment. But this doesn't really matter. If you lose a base, even especially when it's nearly outmined, then you just go back and you have your other bases, the fourth and the fifth base, for example. And when you got battle cruisers, you are really well suited to defend any attack from him. And as you see, I added 4 more starports for a total of 8 starports, because you have enough income at this stage. Well, I would have if I had these 2 gas geysers anymore. And yeah, this is the point when you go for battle cruisers, and also a healthy amount of ravens. So yeah, what I wanted to say here is it doesn't really matter if you lose a base, but you should always have enough tanks to deflect his bio attacks. So now we are in the ultra late game stage, where the opponent has all of the bases on his side of the map, and I have nearly all of the bases except for this one, but I'll try to secure this base soon. And yeah, the opponent goes for Raven Viking with a couple of bio units with them, and now you can see that all of my army is tanks, battle cruisers and ravens, and 2 widow mines that are left over. Here's one and there one. And this is the army you want to have in the late game. You want to have about 20 siege tanks, a couple less is okay. And yeah, 20 ravens is a good amount. 6 battle cruisers would be cool to have a couple battle cruisers more, but this is still okay. So what now happens is you will have enough tanks to defend all of his ground-based attacks. And yeah, I built a couple of missile turrets against the air units. And this command center is to take the island expansion. And yeah, in the ultra late game you want to have the map split in half. So you have siege tanks at every point where he can attack. At this point, where this is the attack path to I think it was my 5th base. And everywhere where he can attack on this side of the map. So just one line of siege tanks and missile turrets that goes through all of this map. And with the battle cruisers and the ravens, as I said in my air army video, you want to poke out with the battle cruisers and get a couple Yamatos off, and with the ravens you want to get a couple of Hunter-Seeker missiles off. Yeah, you can see it here that I just go to him, start Yamatoing his army, and just move back. That weren't the best Yamatos ever, but because it's just free, you could even Yamato Marines and it would still be efficient. But if you do that, the game could go on very long. So yeah, at this point there isn't really much that the opponent can do anymore, because Vikings just die to Hunter-Seeker missiles and point defense drones. Ravens could work if he had way more, but yeah, the opponent won't be used to microing ravens, so when you practice your raven micro, you will have the advantage at that point. And yeah, all of his ground units just get invalidated by the siege tanks. In this numbers, the siege tanks just destroy bio units. Okay, now how this game ended. The game went on with Battlecruiser and Raven Harriers for a couple of more minutes. And yeah, just see for yourself. With that many ravens against nearly no ravens from the opponent, you can just go in, cast a couple of point defense drones, cast a couple of Hunter-Seeker missiles, and if you're lucky, the opponent clumps up and you have a Hunter-Seeker missile hit like this. And most of the time the opponent just will insta-crit after such a hit. So this was the video on the late game in Mech vs Bio. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And I would say until next time. See ya.